Welcome back to the Point. Today's show we're going to go over some Q&A, and the first question I'm going to tackle is single pin versus multiple pin sight for bow hunting. Check it out. Welcome back, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So the next few episodes are going to be some Q&A. This specific question I get at least 3 to 5 times a week, and I appreciate the question, so I figured I'd do this video. It's not send the questions, okay? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm tired of answering the question, because it's different for everyone, and as is most things for archery. I mean, it's so subjective to each person with their scenario and what they have going on. So what I wanted to do is break down my approach, or I guess my direct response to someone when they're asking me this question. Again, single pin, multiple pin sights for bow hunting applications, and I'm going to give you my experience with each. So first of all, I've only ever used a single pin sight for target archery, and many reasons for that. Being able to precisely dial to the yard or half yard in specific situations, fine-tuning how I like my pin setup, being able to add a light. The finesse of a target sight is at a different level than a hunting sight, in my opinion. And it's difficult to get a hunting sight that's durable, that's really bulletproof from a abuse standpoint, and have all the finesse. I just feel that there's very few sights on the market that do that super well without weighing a ton of weight. There's some really good sights on the market that have hunting sights, again, that are fully micro adjustable to the pins, windage, elevation, really good pin guards, but they just weigh a lot. So that's where that practicality factor comes in, and a lot of what we coach in our alpha pyramid structure, and a lot of my philosophies, if you will, come down to practicality. Taking what's supremely accurate from the finesse and the detail standpoint of target archery, and then the practicality of bow hunting, and trying to mesh those two worlds together and see where you fall. Sometimes you might lend yourself on the spectrum a little closer to the target archery side of things. Sometimes you might be more on the bow hunting side of things for whatever reason. So I have a few questions that I always start with. So going into this sights, again, I've primarily bow hunted with fixed pin or fixed pin driver style sights like this one. And the details of the micro adjust pins, windage, elevation, that's where I usually dabble and tinker a little bit. From a strict functionality standpoint, I like a minimum of 4, if not 5 pins, and the ability to drive the sight. So that's what I've been hunting with pretty much exclusively for the last 8 or 9 years. And there's a lot of good sights on the market, so I don't want to talk specifically as to which site's better than the other. I just want to talk more about the platform and how I get to make that decision. So first things first, just like anything that we do in our approach, it's you have to analyze things. And as you start to ask yourself simple questions like, number one, what is the animal or animals you primarily plan to pursue? Someone that's going to be pursuing small game is potentially going to be different than somebody pursuing elk or moose. At the same token, someone pursuing white-tailed deer and mule deer, even though those two mature body size of those animals can be comparable, the systems are going to be potentially very different. So identify the animal or animals you're looking to pursue first. Second to that, and that's not going to be that's just something to know. That's not anything that's going to change your mind one way or the other initially. Secondly, the terrain, which starts to really dive into the details here. Are you, again, in the scenario of the white-tailed deer versus the mule deer, are you going to be in a tree stand in a ground blind? Are you going to be more of a controlled situation than you are hunting mule deer, where you're potentially spot and stalk or still hunting, where you're hunting off the ground, to where the environment is less controlled when you're hunting on the ground in a fluid situation. I'm not talking specifically to a ground blind. I'm saying ground blind tree stand, you're in a fixed position most likely. Hunting from the ground, being spot and stock, still hunting, that's where the variables come into play. The third question you need to ask yourself is the style of hunting you're going to be doing. Again, so the terrain, let me back up, I guess. The terrain, in addition to the country, you really want to talk about, is it open country? Is it, you could be in the west or some of the western states or the northwest states where terrain, the country may be more dense. So the shot distances are going to be limited. So at that point, a setup for somebody hunting mule deer in dense forest, dense country is going to be significantly different or potentially different than somebody that's hunting mule deer at above tree line, where you could be looking at wide open shots. Wind's definitely going to be a factor, thermals and those kind of things. So that's where as you start to break this down, and then you get into the style of hunting with the ground, spot and stock, ground blind, you start to analyze all those things individually and start to see where it starts to point you. The last thing I want to throw in here is you need to know yourself. Myself, I like to hunt alone a lot when I'm hunting in the West. I've hunted with my son a few more times lately, these last few years, but it's not on every hunt. It's on a few hunts here and there. But when I'm hunting elk, for example, and anything mule deer, pronghorn, I'm usually by myself. And I can be very aggressive at times. And I say that because if let's talk about a situation. If I'm calling to an animal, or if I've heard an animal, a bull bugle, for example, I'm not usually the type of person to sit and respond and wait and see what happens. I'm usually closing the distance right away. Unless that animal is already within 150 yards, then I'm going to analyze the situation differently. But if that animal's quarter mile away, half mile away, in a drainage, in a bowl somewhere, I'm moving to get closer to where I can hopefully see or get a better pinpoint direction on that animal, and I'm not making any noise. So I'm very aggressive in that standpoint. In addition to that, if you know your style of hunting, if you know you tend to be more passive, or you're hunting in a pair, or you're doing more tandem calling setups, or you just need to know yourself, your tendencies, if you will. So again, back to the elk situation, if I'm calling to an elk or if I'm approaching an elk, I'm usually pushing the envelope a little bit within reason to try to get closer. And it's happened at times where I've heard an animal before and I've never once called, and I'm just closing the gap, closing the gap, to where at times I've actually not spooked but jumped that animal, or I've walked up, come over a ridge, come around a tree, and that animal is right there at 45, 50 yards. And that's where it starts to break down into your effective range, and then the rule of thirds and different systems, to where if I come around that tree and that animal catches movement, doesn't pinpoint me, but I'm able to draw my bow, just quick instinct, as a quick reaction, I would say, I have my bow at full draw, but I haven't maybe ranged the target yet. I've identified that he's within 50 yards, I'm assuming, and in that situation, I may continue to say, you know what, it's pushing closer to 50. I don't want to judge this animal at that distance and take that shot. So I may opt to not take the shot. I may opt to just wait, see if he moves closer, just be in a ready position. Or if that animal happens, I come around the corner, he picks his head up, maybe he was feeding or he was, whatever he was doing, and he's in there in that 30 to 40 yard range. And I quickly analyze the yardage. I can get a good estimation within a couple, 2 to 3 yards on that animal. And if I feel comfortable taking the shot, I'm already at full draw, but I haven't taken the time to range a target. So in that example, a single pin sight does not benefit my style of hunting, because if I have that sight set at 35 yards, I may be golden. But what if I have my sight set at 25 yards and that animal's closer to 40, and let's just say that I'm just not super comfortable holding high on that animal. That's where, for me, a multiple pin sight is the only way I like to go with, especially when I'm on the ground, because of those type of situations. I encounter those kind of situations over and over every fall, and it's because of my style of hunting and my tendencies, my personal tendencies. So I'm not you, and you may hunt very similar to me, you may hunt very different to me, but you need to keep those things into account, because again, maybe the yardage judging thing is a no-go for you. There's no way I'm going to shoot at an animal without judging the animal first. Okay, well in that situation, if you're going to take the time to pick up a rangefinder and range it, then that extra second to roll a sight is maybe not a big deal to you, and it's acceptable in your hunting style and in your system and your toolbox, if you will, what you like to do in your pre-step process to the shot. So if that's how you plan to hunt, then potentially a single pin sight, even if you're hunting on the ground in the West, could be a good sight for you. But the general question of should I do, is a single pin sight better than a 3-pin sight, better than a 5-pin sight? I don't know. You have to start asking yourself those questions. And again, the animals you're planning on pursuing, the terrain, the country, the style of hunting, and then your tendencies as a hunter. It's something you really have to be honest with yourself, because that newest, latest, greatest sight on the market may have a lot of sex appeal, and you really want to get that sight, and you think, or maybe you think, this is a ticket, I'm going to be more accurate because of this sight. And unless you're going from a lower quality, lower value sight that limits options, limits axis adjustments, or whatever the case is, going up to a new bells and whistles sexy sight, your accuracy probably is not going to be hugely improved because of that one component. Could it be better from a durability standpoint? Probably so. Is it better from an adjustability standpoint? Sure. But once your pins are set, they should be set. So in that respect, I just urge you, and again, coming from someone who owns a pro shop, who is dependent on sales to drive that business, you really need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself that question, or ask yourself these 4 questions. Does the animal, the terrain, the country, the style of hunting, and my tendencies, is it good to go over to that different site? Maybe it's a different platform. Again, I say platform by meaning single pin to 3, 4, 5 pin setup. Now that the one thing I will mention is, more as of late, and I would say the last couple of years, Spot Hog has a really nice 2-pin option. You can build any of these, the Black Gold or some of these other sites are customizable, where you can build them with 2 pins if you want. Because a lot of people want to mask purchasing a new sight because of flaws in their form, in their structure, in their execution, and whether it's target panic or whether it's something else that comes up, and the excuse may be, oh, I can't see through my pins in my sight. It covers up too much of the object. Okay, maybe that's the case. Or maybe the case is you just haven't learned to properly aim through the target and execute a shot regardless of the sight. And maybe that's the issue. That's the underlying issue. So answer the questions first, and once you do get to those questions and you really analyze the situation and you say, yeah, this is probably not a good, I don't probably need to switch. Maybe you want to switch to a newer site of the same platform because, again, it's newer, more durable, better pin system, probably a little easier to adjust. That's a different topic. The topic is 1 pin to multiple pin sites, and that's how I usually, when somebody asks me the question, I ask the questions back to have them help answer themselves and answer their own question, if you will. So. But I hope you take something from that. Maybe it's similar to what you do already in your evaluation of a single pin versus a multiple pin sight. I just know that the different sites on the market, like I said, the higher end sites, comparing one to another, it's splitting hairs. They're so good. There's a lot of good sites on the market. I've shot Black Gold for the last 5 or so years. And I've played with other sites. I've played with a lot of other sites. And I'm going to tell you that even though they have really nice, fancy bells and whistles sites, some of them in that $450 price range, I'm still kind of in that, a scent verdict, multiple pin, and I have one of my sites with micro adjust, one of them without. I still like the bare bones, just solid, well-built platform that these guys make, and even so, some of the other manufacturers out there may have a little bit sexier machining or cutouts or whatever. The micro adjust is a little bit different system, maybe a little bit nicer. I like that for me because of its functionality, its durability, it's clean. There's not a lot going on, and it, like I said, it's not failed me. Those sights have not failed me, and I just don't have a reason to change. Is that right for you? I don't know. Maybe you use these questions to help answer that for yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this topic, this question. We're going to get into another. I'm going to break on this video and get into the next topic, which is into some tuning. And as always, you send me your questions. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. A lot of my questions, my answers, excuse me, come from more of a, I don't want to say philosophy based, but archery and bow hunting specifically is so subjective to how things are perceived that I don't usually like to give you a definitive answer with anything. It's more of, hey, consider these 3, 4, 5 factors, you know, evaluate against what you're doing and answer that question for yourself, because it's your answer could be completely different from mine, and yours is just as right for you as mine is for me. So again, I hope you enjoy the recent content. Check it out. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, on the audio side, we're on podcast and Stitcher. Haven't quite made the resubmittal to the iTunes platform yet, but we'll be working on that. So anyways, as always, dream big, shoot straight. We'll see you guys on the next episode.